In the news, the headlines are the Ukrainians mounted a counter-offensive and retook formerly held Russian areas of their country back. That's pretty cool. The Ukrainians definitely have their shit together in the battlefield, so props to them. Um, it's just this whole thing with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I really was surprised to see just kind of I I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of Ukrainians' ability to muster their forces and put together, extremely, impressive military response to the invasion, or punching above their weight military with their numbers for what they have in their arsenal. And it's also almost as much, if not more so, the Russians' ineptitude and squandering the assets which they have at their disposal. They have a strange military system. They don't have NCOs. For the people that don't know, NCO is for non-commissioned officer. We call them the backbone of the army. Officers like myself, we're the eggheads, the brains. We do the planning. We issue the orders, and then we supervise and refine. But the NCOs execute the orders, and essentially they're the drivers of the pace in terms of military operations. They're on the ground with the troops, with your lower enlisted, ensuring they complete the mission. So the Russians just have officers and enlisted. They don't have NCOs, which are like essentially like your middling ranks. They're the connector between the troops that are front line. They're the conduit between the troops that are in front line. Joe Snuffy, a private that's slinging a fucking rifle in a backpack across the mountains, and the officers like me who are out back at the TOC at the HQ, who are like thinking about things with their fucking supposedly big brains, and making the plans. But the NCOs are the ones that are ensuring that the mission intent is actually carried out, and they're looking after soldiers, making sure soldiers are prepared at the ground level and executing the mission. So they don't have NCOs, and I think that might have been a mistake, like from the looks of it. You really need NCOs, because if you don't have those are your most seasoned, experienced enlisted soldiers, and these guys have like the real world knowledge, the subject matter expertise to actually apply what it takes to complete the mission. And if you don't have that, I mean, I get it. They're on the other side of the country. They do things different. The other side of the world, they do things differently there. So, but maybe they should rethink that after this giant clusterfuck.
Let's not give them more Russian military tips, but yes.
yeah. I think they've already started to realize, and it's not just that. It's not just the force structure they have. It's corruption within the ranks. It's lack of morale. From what I've heard, this is like, maybe this is a generalization, but this is kind of like America invading Canada. Like, we're not that different from the Canadians. The Russians are that different from the Ukrainians, and vice versa. Like, I know personally I wouldn't be very excited about invading Canada. I'd be like, what in the fuck are we doing? This makes no sense. It's just a power grab. These are like our brothers, our cousins. Like, they're not far removed from us. So I understand that there's extreme problem in morale in the Russian forces. They don't want to be here. A lot of them are conscripts. They don't want to be invading this essentially somewhat of a sister or cousin country to them. So I understand that it's a problem on all ends, and they haven't maintained their equipment. They haven't done. In my old unit, we would do PMCS vehicles, preventive maintenance checks and services, fucking acronyms. You never learn them all, but they're basically vehicle inspection, making sure your equipment functions properly. So you do those. You're supposed to do them like every month, every drill. PMCS your Humvees, fucking starting them up, make sure they have fluids, check the tires, make sure they have all the kit that's required in them. Russians ain't been doing that. They've probably been doing shit like the Afghans did, where they like sell fuel and sell things that you could get money for, to pocket it. So there's corruption in the ranks like that, where they've sold off their equipment for their own personal profit and stuff. So it's and you don't even do PMCSs. Well, if you let your vehicles go, what happens? Everything breaks down over time. Tires included. You don't change your tires. You have convoys breaking down because their tires fucking pop because their sidewalls are all cracked. They got dry rot on them. Just basic stuff like that. And they don't plan and resource their fuel. So you have tanks that run out of fuel on your way into country. No logistics, broadcasting unencrypted data, or broadcasting tactical data on unencrypted channels, not using frequency hopping and encryption on your radio comms. I mean, this is like armying 101 that they can't do, or at least this is more early war. Maybe they've learned now. It seems to be more of an actual kind of even fight, but it's pretty incredible how ate the fuck up they were. And I really expected them to just kind of overrun Ukraine, because they had all the tools at their disposal. I mean, if they actually used the assets they had and maintained the assets they had and implemented their battle strategy according to their doctrinal military strategy, they should have already taken over the entire country with the superior numbers and firepower that they have. So they just snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory, apparently. So it's pretty crazy.
We're all glad that as the rest of the world, we stand with Ukraine, and we're glad to hear that that's the way it went.
It's far from over
to invade. Yeah, very far from over, and surprising as well, because I was really concerned when this was starting, and I was concerned when they were talking about the Russian military buildup on the border, and
we knew
you hear something like that, and then you're like, okay, you almost don't even need the commentators to tell you that there's going to be a problem. Like, they're gearing up to do something, right? This is not a normal exercise, whatever. This is real fucking life. So I felt that the Ukrainians kind of should have met them at the border type of thing, as opposed to they waited till the invasion occurred. So I thought, okay, the Ukrainians are fighting, they're backpedaling, they're fighting off their back foot, which is like not the ideal position to be in if you're a fighter. If you're like a boxer or a mixed martial artist, like you'd rather be the one imposing and pushing forward than having to backpedal and react. So I'm thinking, Jesus, they're already at a disadvantage because the first move has been made, and they weren't ready to counteract it immediately. But like some kind of movie, they've been able to mount a crazy defense. Even though they weren't the first ones to strike, or at least meet that first strike right away. The Russian military built up there for quite a long time on the border, over a month, maybe it was several months, and eventually started moving over the border. Like, there was that waiting period of, I wonder, what is the rationale? It's like, we don't want this to be true, so we're not going to react to it, because if we react to it, it makes it even more true. But I feel like that's not the best, but hats off to the Ukrainian people and leadership for fighting an incredible battle against a larger, more well-armed opponent.